Welcome back to Final Sector. That's right, we're back again, assuming that everything comes out as planned, which of course it will. We're back in full swing. F1 is exciting. We're ready to rough and tumble and definitely not have another break weirdly coming up very soon, right? But we do have another race. We do have a bit of a back-to-back, a double header. Two probably completely different ends of the spectrum type circuits. We just had Baku. What an event. So many talking points, as we'll likely get into, and as the F1 world is likely going to get into over the coming days. Maybe a bit of controversy, maybe a bit of sneaky rear wing, front wing, bendy wendy kind of technology going on here.
Yes.
But that might not apply at Singapore, but what we do know about Singapore is that last year it was the race that threw up the weirdest of results. And given that this has now been most of a year of weird results, what do we even predict coming into here this year? Can we have any certainty about who's actually going to be good at Singapore this year?
It's going to be a Red Bull 1-2 by 30 seconds, and then
Wouldn't
whoever's in
surprise
third.
me.
Yeah.
And it would be
then
Perez by Max.
Yep. Who knows? Yeah, Singapore is one of those, basing off last year, it is just one of those oddity tracks. It's normally pretty hot. It's a little bit cooler than it was last year, but just the nature of the track, it like traps all the heat and humidity inside the track. Humidity, a very pertinent point because it is likely to have some rain and potentially some thunderstorms around, which will bring moisture, which will bring humidity. So even though it is a few degrees cooler, it's probably still going to be pretty warm. But yeah, it's a weird track. I love Singapore, like as a circuit, and as an event, I really, really love it. It doesn't always throw up the best racing, particularly for overtaking. But you never, with how close the cars are, and we saw last year that even though there wasn't really any overtaking, a strategy still came into it. There was a real big part up the front that led to Sainz getting his win in the end last year. So, even with the Mercedes last year, they went the two stop, that late stop, and the sheer difference in pace that they had it was insane compared to the rest of the field. So
Yeah.
if they're confident in overtaking and they can find a place to overtake, maybe we could see a two-stop work, because it very nearly worked for Mercedes last year. So I think teams still have to be aware that could be a strategy, but yeah, it's a fascinating one, Singapore. It always seems to be.
Yeah, despite it being very tight, very twisty, a proper street track, it's kind of like the more balanced, the more up in the air version of Monaco, where Monaco is like only about the strategy and the qualifying, because you ain't overtaking around there unless you've got,
Correct.
a Red Bull versus a Sauber or something, right?
Yeah.
Whereas around here, you can put the pressure on, you can still make mistakes, but you can also make passes. If you do a two-stop versus a one-stop, it's not like you're just going to be stuck in the traffic. You can actually then use your tyre advantage to catch up, to pressure others, to hopefully overtake others. And with often the undercut also being stupid strong around here too, it can mean that you need to often be on your A game when it comes to strategy. And if we have a race even as close as last year, if we have a race as close as Baku, it will matter even more for these strategists to be earning their top dollar.
Yes, definitely.
But it is kind of hard, because even the anomaly of Red Bull last year, it was kind of down to how they didn't handle curves, but it was still, from that regard, a bit weird. And even Ferrari, it being a strong track for them in a season when they were struggling a little bit, and they kind of started to come strong at this point, but they were really strong here.
Yeah.
What does it mean for this year? Of course, kind of the what do you call it? The red herring, I suppose, is the McLaren. Is this actually going to be a track they may just dominate at? Or is this a track that they may kind of be even out, and we may see another strong Ferrari? We may see a resurgent Mercedes again.
Mercedes were quick last year here, and they
were, and again in a season where they weren't necessarily setting the stars alight.
Yep.
So it's hard to say until we see any track running. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough.
It feels very up in the air, very open. You mentioned like the weather can be a bit variable here as well. I haven't seen too much ahead, but to your point, it might not be as hot, but it is still a track that is very demanding, given that they have so many corners, and you need a lot of both mental focus and you need a lot of physical energy. Will be interesting to see. Go on.
I was going to say, I think it's one of the longest for time as well.
Yes, it often gets close to the time limit.
Yes, yeah, it nearly gets close to 2 hours. So it's, again, adds to your point of it being sort of mentally demanding. Yeah, rather than like some races over in an hour, 15 minutes, it's like, yeah, you're getting close to that 2 hour mark in these hot, humid conditions where one slight mistake puts you into the wall, or you could lose a couple of places because of it if you're up front. And in Sainz's case last year, one small mistake, or even we saw from Russell last year, one slight mistake fighting to get onto that. It was either to get onto the podium or to go for P2, something like that. One slight mistake, he's into the wall, bins it. That's all it takes. So yeah, you have to really be on it here.
Yep, and the other thing we have to factor in, it has actually been an 8-race streak that we haven't had a full safety car, but Singapore does have a 100% record for safety cars. Now, given the trend of this, it could be the race so we don't have one, but given that we often do have one here, that also throws things into the works again. How do you, change your strategy? How do you adapt? How do you change to a 1 or a 2 or a 3+ stop? If you notice a safety car coming out, you could get an advantage.
I'd be surprised if we don't see a lap 1 safety car here.
Yes,
I would be very, very surprised with how close it is at the front, and the fact that there's a good chance we could see 3 or 4 teams all in, say, the top 5. There's a good chance you might not be able to play the team game and be like, oh, hold station, don't, with McLaren.
Do anything stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
McLaren saying, they hold station like what they didn't do in Monza with, Piastri diving down the inside, which is a great move, but, we've talked about that. But if you've got 3-4 teams all within close proximity, all who think they can win the race, and, Ferrari fighting to get past Red Bull, they're very, very close to being able to jump them as well. They're going to want as many points as possible, just in case Red Bull do find their form again. McLaren want to be able to streak further ahead. Obviously, Red Bull want to get back on top as well. Mercedes, I think, they're probably still a bit too far back, but the fact that they know if they're on it, they can still fight for race wins on their day. If you've got all, 3-4 teams up there, that first lap, it's going to be no prisoners there, I feel like. So something's going to come of that, I feel like. But like you say,
this is often the nature when you're at this part of the year as well. This is often,
true.
We're about 60-70% of the way through. Teams are starting to see where they are, what they need to fight for, trying to pick up good performances. And that has led to some spectacular accidents here in the past, particularly on lap 1 in times of tension. What else is happening this weekend? Well, of course, we have Kevin Magnussen back. Probably, of course, questions to him and the team. And
he might be part of that fucking lap 1 incident.
Maybe. I'm sure, admittedly, that the Ayo Komatsu and others may be getting some questions like, did you think about keeping Bamman for the rest of the year, given you've got him for next year, given he's doing so well? He might be doing better than Magnussen. I am sure that would not help Magnussen's case, as I guess he's technically looking for a seat for next year in technicality, but there's none there, so...
unless he's
will
suddenly...
be a little bit awkward.
Suddenly become a Red Bull driver, then I can't see him going to Sauber. And
so I think a bit of a case of enjoying this race, enjoying the rest of the year, and trying to, of course, fight for the best position for his team. Ultimately, that's what the team will hope of him, and that's what he'll want to see at his career.
Try and make use of those 12 penalty points he has for the rest of the year now. So
well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, he can maximize them to hold everyone up in for Hulkenberg to make sure he secures the points again.
A la Miami, yeah.
Yep. It'll probably be a tricky race again for Colapinto, given that he's still fairly new to F1 and this race often is taxing. There was also word that James Vowles is already endorsing him and doing what he can to advocate to Sauber to basically take the seat. So as much as he is a driver of their team. He's not going to say, no, you're not allowed to go race. You've got to stay with us for 3 years plus until we have room for you. He's going to say, fly free, son, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm glad he's doing that. That's,
Yep.
Yeah. We can talk about that another time. I was going to go on another tangent, but I really like Colton, so I want to see him. I want to see him do well, and it'd be great to see him on the grid.
It
next year
would.
for sure.
Great success story. Yeah.
Definitely.
We may also have some news either during the race or just after the race weekend on the RB seat. I don't know if it was just tabloid media or local headlines I was seeing that seemed to be
Helmut Marko
not talking
was
about
teasing it.
yes, not talking about Ricciardo in the greatest of light, but that may just be tabloid media being tabloid media.
Or Helmut Marko being Helmut Marko.
Yes, true, depending on what he said. Correct, and doing what he does. You're very right. I guess most people are expecting to hear that being the Lawson announcement. You wouldn't put it past them to not do it, but you'd need a pretty strong case to call it otherwise. So we may get some news over that over the next, I guess the next week from today, I suppose we're likely to hear something.
Yeah, it seemed like it's probably going to happen between Singapore and Austin. I think that's what they were alluding to. But it may happen during the race weekend if Ricciardo decides to be an absolute clod, and they might just be like, "Hey, Lawson, we've got."
He may say something early.
In my head, it's Lawson's already got that seat. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's done and dusted. I think it's going to be Lawson and Tsunoda in that RB for next year. I think Ricciardo's just left it too late now, and he's probably going to be out, unfortunately for him.
Yep.
But we'll find out.
Well, an interesting tale of his return, I guess something that we will, review as we head towards the end of the season, depending on what the news is. But we could be surprised. It could turn out that he actually has the seat. Again, wouldn't put it past that news, but you'd need a pretty convincing case to convince the fans otherwise that that's the choice to go forward if you're not biased at all.
Yeah, definitely.
What we were alluding to before, likely a talking point that is going to come up, is a little bit of, I don't know what word you want to use, controversy, cleverness, otherwise, of what McLaren was seen doing in Baku, particularly with their rear wing doing some flexing. Now, that's not uncommon, but flexing in such a way, and I think we talked about it a little bit.
Yes, you did.
That the rear corners, the left and right corners of the DRS flap effectively open a little bit, almost like effectively opening that DRS by the tiny margin. I haven't seen much in terms of like concrete, it's like some teams are saying X, some teams are saying Y. It sounds like that some teams are ready to test a similar concept in Austin if it isn't outlawed by that point. There seems to be some suggestion or word that it wouldn't necessarily be an in-season type thing. Like they would adjust. It would be like a for next year thing.
Okay.
So if that is the case, that may be why some teams, and you got to remember we're near the end of this year. Obviously, if teams are putting in effort to prepare their similar uses of this for Austin, they must have a good inkling that it's not likely to just get slammed down as soon as the FIA do a few checks and say, no, this isn't in the spirit, we shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately in a cost cap and research and development cap era, you don't want to be spending your time on something that you know is about to get outlawed. It was similar to the DAS system, where they very quickly said, no one should look into this because we're about to get rid of it.
And then Mercedes were the only one who did it. Yeah.
Correct. But then other teams knew not to try and copy it halfway through the year because they said, we're going to get rid of it. So don't waste your time and money and resource and everything. So, I'm mainly raising it because although it may not matter as much here, of course, any straight you go down and reach top speed, which you can just about here, it will still assist. But given the fact that it obviously helped McLaren a lot in their last race out, and it is a interesting interpretation of the rules and a movable area device, we're likely to hear a lot of chat on it. So stay tuned for plenty of that. But outside of that, I did not have much else really to bring up. What about from your end?
Nah, really nothing else. I don't think there's been any track changes or Really, nothing that I've seen. Again, it's a bit
No.
early in the week. We're recording this on the Tuesday. Most of the news
Yes.
comes out sort of the Wednesday or Thursday. So yeah, it's probably by the time this comes out, there'll probably be stuff we haven't mentioned. That's going to be why. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like I say, I just love Singapore. I'm sure I said this last year as well. Outside of the Australian Grand Prix, that's like the next one I want to go to.
100%.
Is Singapore. I just think it'd be a great one to attend and watch as a fan.
Yes, we may have a future final sector episode live from
Holy shit.
Singapore. We'll have to.
Oh, it's gonna
have
happen
to
next
stay-
year. Singapore 2025. We're looking for sponsors.
Shut- but it is that time of the episode. We do need to go into our predictions. Oh boy, what have we both put down here? Probably a blank piece of paper.
I actually have got three names, but
Wow, good
very
on
unlike
you.
me. Yeah.
We don't have the exact points tally. We did a bit of a preview for, I guess it would have been Italy that maybe didn't make the airwaves.
Yeah, we
and as
recorded it
such-
very, very late, and I couldn't get it out in time. By the time I could get it out, I'm like, there's no point getting it out. So we did do predictions,
So we will-
yeah.
Yes, we will have to check the tapes and we'll have to get back maybe after the weekend, given that we have a mini break, to see where we are both at. But we do need to get the random position of this race that we'll both predict for. So without further ado, we will roll it. And it will come up with position 16.
I feel like
Well,
we've had
it's
a lot
bit
of high
a-
numbers, but
Yes. It's a bit of a pick in the bag.
yeah, that could be a retirement given Singapore's nature
It
as
could
well.
be. Do you want to go bold with a medium higher place retirement?
I kind of need to because I think you're starting to streak ahead. I don't know the exact points, but I think you are starting.
No, I was a little bit ahead.
Yeah, but
out
I
of-
feel like you must have got more points from the Italy one
Mm.
because I'm pretty sure you banked on Ferrari doing stuff there.
That does
So-
ring a ding a bell. Yes.
So I might need to go bold with my P16.
I will go Bottas.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Bold.
so bold. All right, you know what? I'm gonna say it's gonna be one of the top 4 teams, but I'm just gonna try and pick someone from there. Let's say it will be Hamilton.
Hamilton. Okay. I like your style. I wish you luck.
I'm already regretting it.
Now, it would be an even bolder call if you both had Hamilton in P16 and in your top 3. I don't know if we've done that before, but you could, I guess, if you wanted to really hedge your bets. I suppose if
could.
the number was for P4, then maybe if you wanted to, you could put them across both just to widen your bets.
Good do.
But we only need to look at the top 3 for this week. Where to start? Do you have Max in your top 3?
I don't know.
Okay. Yes, very much the same here.
So it's across the other 3 teams. Obviously, I've got Hamilton P16. I don't have him in my top 3, although I did. It was a consideration.
Understandable.
I think you have to with how fast they were last year. It seems like a track that could suit them very well. And I could see them up there again. Just again the nature of the track. Who knows? Any of those really 7 drivers I could see up there pretty comfortably and be like, yeah, in whatever order they end up in, yeah, that's probably about right.
Yeah.
So, which is cool to think about, but I might have gone maybe a little. I was gonna say a little safe, but maybe I haven't. I'm gonna go P1. I've got Leclerc winning the race,
Okay.
and it's based on last year. Obviously, Sainz got pole last year. He managed to win the race by doing the one stop and just not getting overtaken. Leclerc, his qualifying seems to be like his 1 lap pace seems to be back, at least based on Baku. I think his 1 lap pace is good. If Ferrari are as good as they were last year, I think Leclerc only qualified P3, like less than a 10th behind Sainz.
Sure.
So Leclerc was still that close, I think, even when the car was not to his liking. So I just think the Ferrari will strong around here again, and I think Leclerc, if he's still got that qualifying form that he had last weekend, he'll put it on pole, and he'll probably just go start to finish and win the race, to be honest.
Good pick. I think I did have his name on my P1 at one point, but then I kind of shuffled it around a little bit.
Understandable.
He is still on my podium, but I've actually got him P3.
Okay.
Partly because I agree that I think that Ferrari will be strong, and I think he will also be strong, but I guess with how I've painted it in my mind, I've got two other drivers ahead of him. I suppose one driver we may have in the same position then is our P2, which I do have his teammate Sainz actually ahead of him.
Okay.
Although I guess Leclerc has been doing well in qualifying when he does seem to get a bit of a run going with a car that he's comfortable with. He can really ace things, while Sainz is generally more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
His overall race before the crash in Baku was actually pretty decent. Like his pace on that last stint when he was saving tires
was good.
Was pretty magnificent. And he would be coming off a bit of a high, even though it was last year, but doing well here. You could kind of, again, interchange them. I think I said a similar thing for Monza, where you could kind of interchange these two names and they feel all right in my case. And I kind of had to put them both here. But it didn't feel like I was bold enough to put them in a P1. It seems so many times this year they've just missed out. And I maybe think that they are just going to miss out again.
Okay.
So then it's really a matter of who they're going to miss out to, I guess, is the ultimate question. But maybe I'll let you take over for a bit while I think if this is what I'm happy to go for.
Which McLaren driver has he got as P1? Very interesting. Because I normally would have just been like, oh, he's got Norris P1, but recent form suggests maybe you don't. So
yeah, some food for thought.
For my P2, I do have Lando Norris as my P2. He got unlucky last weekend. He probably would have been, actually, I would say probably, there's a very high chance he would have been in that Q3 and possibly out qualifying Oscar had he actually made it through to Q3. There's every chance that he could have been ahead of Piastri starting the race, and then we have a very different story. You know, we think about where Norris started and where he finished in Baku. Like, he had a pretty damn good race, all things considered as well. If he makes it to Q3 here, I think he's just as good a chance to put it on the front row or even P1. But yeah, I can see Norris bouncing back here and taking a P2 for sure.
And to that point as well, he's often a qualifier where even if he's doing decent throughout each of the sessions, he is one of those drivers that has that potential to put in a real special lap, you know, kind of like a Leclerc when the Ferrari seems it's Max, kind of there, but then suddenly he's at the top, and very much a Max type thing, right? A Hamilton type thing. We didn't really get to see it. And even if you could, we didn't really talk about it last weekend, but if you could argue that the fumble was kind of in his court and he still could have done enough even with what was going on, it still was a weird circumstance, and you can't necessarily just attribute it to pure drive error.
True. Yeah.
But I do have him, Norris, as my P1 this week. It's almost the case where you've got like 4 drivers I kind of want to put, you know, at the top, and I just like the idea of the 2 Ferraris. It's not necessarily, again, that I think that Piastri will just fall off. I think it will be quite close. But I feel like Norris around here with a car that actually he's super comfortable with, and how good we see that car, he could just pull something pretty special. It almost feels like he's due for it due to recent performances, you know? It's like there's all this talk about him and needing the championship and team orders and yada yada and Monza, and it's just like, this is the time for him to get the monkey off the back and actually put the stake down to say, look, even if we might not get the title or whatever, like, I can do this, and I can do it the most difficult circuit, and I can beat out 2 quick Ferraris, and maybe Piastri will be there supporting him or whatever as the number 2, and maybe that's why he's in, like, say, P4 or something. again, I say this as if this is, definitive 100%. You could change this and I could argue 100 other things, as is often the case with these recent predictions from both of us.
Correct, yes.
But I like this storyline. I like two Ferraris there. Again, somehow just missing out on the top step, and it's Norris who actually then puts his fist into the air and says, yes, like, I can do this,
Yeah.
Let's see how we go, team and everyone. So,
It's a good story.
Yes.
But
we'll have to see.
Yeah, well, I've got Piastri in P3, so I've gone the 2 McLaren route.
There you go. Nice to see a bit of variance.
Bit of variance. I think this is probably the most different we've gone in a while, because I think we've got all 3 positions we've gone different.
Yes, all 3 different and a slightly different driver as well.
Yes,
it's good.
Yeah, so... I mean... I don't really know what to say. I think Piastri is on its super form. I think the Ferrari and the McLaren will be pretty evenly matched around here.
It's hard to see otherwise.
I can't really see much between them. And really, I think just based on it's based on feel and like who do I think out of the 4 will be on the podium. And unfortunately for Sainz, I know he won it last year, but it's those 3 drivers. I could see Sainz there, and you'd be like, yep, okay, that's fine. But can't have 4 people in the top 3, unfortunately.
No, you really can't. But hopefully we have 4 people and more fighting for the top 3. I guess that's what we are hoping to see here. Given the recent trend of recent races and how this year is turning out, you would be surprised to not see it. But I suppose as long as it is not maybe Max that suddenly finds something and returns to form and is dominating with it, then any sort of result will hopefully be one that we can celebrate.
Yeah, definitely.
But I guess we'll just have to tuck in, watch, and come back after the weekend is over to talk about it. And I guess, maybe if it's another extra spicy race like Baku, then... everyone will have something to talk about as we kind of take this weird end season mini break as well. But anything else you want to add for now before we wrap this one up?
Don't think so. No, covered everything.
Excellent. All good. Yeah. So that about wraps it up for our preview. Again, don't be surprised if by the time this comes out, they've talked about completely remodeling a curb and a certain section of the track and all sorts, because that's how these things often go. But do tune in. We do think it will be a really interesting weekend here, and honestly, any drivers from any of those top 4 teams, and I do mean that literally, any of the drivers could actually surprise here and win, and you kind of see it happening, right? It's not out of the question for once for Checo to actually do something, considering his form in Baku was not that bad for once. So we will be back after the weekend is over. We appreciate everyone tuning in to listen. As always, make sure that you follow the weekend. Hopefully it's a good one. And otherwise, take care of yourselves, guys. We're out of here.
Bye-bye.